Albedo since launch has had multitudes of upgrades, so it's time to talk about them. Patch 1.5 has a new Albedo build or two, and 1.6 is going to give him an even bigger buff to something that's intrinsic in his kit. We're going over that today, tackling both the 1.5 and the 1.6 changes that are going to affect Albedo. If you guys are playing War of the Visions or Brave Exvius and you're not using the Amazon App Store version of the game, there's no reason not to, especially if you're making in-app purchases, because the App Store and Amazon coins are going to save you up to 20%. We're sponsored by Amazon in the App Store today. You can save up to 20%, especially if you use my special promo code down below. I'll have it linked in the description of every video for you guys, and it's not that hard to swap over. You simply need to go into your menu in your settings for either FFBE or War of the Visions. Make sure that your accounts are synced to the account email of your choice. If you're buying anything in app, there's no reason not to save up to 20% on your valuable real world money. So go ahead and check that out. Thank you once again for that sponsorship, and let's get into the content. Strap yourselves in, guys. We're going in full big brain this video. You guys saw the thumbnail, you guys know what's up. And yeah, Albedo, one of my favorite characters in the game. Although I think they still need to fix the elevator in combat because big ruin guard booties preventing me from doing cool things on it, so I don't really depend on it. You know what I'm saying? So the first big decision when you're building your Albedo is what build are you going for? Are you going all in on his elemental skill? Are you going all in on his elemental burst? Or are you going to do a bit of sort of balance between the two? Now, his elemental skill is fantastic. You guys know this. It's literally not a secret at this point. Every 2 seconds you hit somebody and you can build your E and go for it and have it explode for 22,000 damage, which is insane as an off DPS off the field support. He's an insane way to build this character. We'll be tackling that one. At the same time, his elemental burst is also fantastic, allowing you to do massive amounts of AoE burst damage via his elemental burst. So let's talk about that. Now, regardless of which sort of way you want to use him, the substats for your artifacts are going to be relatively the same. You're building him as a DPS support character, which means you value crit chance and you value crit damage a ton. So you're looking for a 50-55% crit rate, right around there, and you're going to be able to aim for 150 up to 200% crit damage just because of the way that you're building that character, but we'll touch on that more later. On top of that, energy recharge isn't the biggest factor for him. His elemental burst only costs 40 energy, and guess what? It has a 12-second cooldown. He generates a decent amount of particles, and they are earth element, so he's going to fill that up relatively quickly and relatively painlessly. So focus on the good old crit chance and crit damage. Now, where it delineates here is whether you're building on that E-focus centric build or you're building on that elemental burst focus centric build. If you want to maximize your E damage, your E cares about only your defense stats. You're looking for main stat sands of defense, and instead of attack percent substat like most other DPS, you're looking for defense percent substat. So this would line you up with a defense percent sands, geo percent goblet, and then whichever sort of circlet gets you to that 50-60% crit chance, 200% crit damage ratio that Albedo is known for, that is going to get you those big 22,000 crits. And this just makes his elemental skill that insane. 24,000, 22,000 damage every 2 seconds with the dude being in the back the whole time. Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit more. Now, if you want to go all in on your elemental burst build, instead of that defense percent sands, instead of your substats going to defense percent, you'll go for attack percent. This is going to buff the large and vast majority of your elemental burst damage, unless you have a constellation, which we'll touch on later, which is where Albedo shines a ton. If you have this constellation, your E build will also be your elemental burst build. Now, the big new set for Albedo in patch 1.5 is Tenacity of the Millilith set. This set is amazing for your support off the field DPS Albedo. The two-piece does nothing for him whatsoever. 20% HP. We don't really care about that, but the 4-piece is what we're here for. So it's when an elemental skill hits an opponent, the attack of all nearby party members, including the ones in your party, no matter where they are. If you're playing solo, all 4 of your party members get this 20% attack increase and 30% shield strength increase for 3 seconds. The downside of this is it's only 3 seconds. The plus side of this is that unlike any other artifact set in the entirety of Genshin Impact, whoever is wearing this set can activate this proc, whether or not they're on or off the field. What this means is, we've talked about it, his E, the explosion damage, happens if he's off the field or if he's on the field, and it has a 2-second cooldown, which means this effect is activated 100% of the time. 100%, 20% attack buff for your entire party. That is fantastic. And the shield strength, if you're using someone like Zhongli or Diona or Noelle, or even what we'll talk about at 1.6 crystallization shields are getting buffed, which he will generate, is going to be even stronger than before. So this is going to be an amazing attack and defense proc 100% of the time, all the time. So if you want to withstand all of the damage and get a slight increase in damage, this is the set that you want to go for. And this is the set that I'm going to use on him forever. That 2-piece might be a little bit of a dead set unless you're using a certain weapon, which we'll touch on when we get to the weapons, but this makes my main DPS literally an unkillable god. It doesn't matter who you're using, whether they're an elemental DPS like Diluc or someone like Shao or someone like a big old new Eula. You're such an unkillable god of a DPS with this buff activated. It's not even funny. It's not funny. Okay, if the support section doesn't really tickle your fancy, wet your noodle, whatever it is, then you can go right on ahead and run the old mainstay 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, 2-piece Archaic Petra for 15% geo damage and 20% elemental burst damage. It's going to get you extra damage on your E and some extra damage on your elemental burst at the same time. So definitely go for that if you don't care about supporting anybody. But guys, try out the middle of the set, get it in there. It's going to be a good time for you. I love this set a ton. Seriously, it changes how strong you feel. Yes, by the numbers, Albedo is going to do a little bit less damage for himself, but you're going to be so tanky in doing so much more damage on all of your other characters all the time. It's unreal. It's simply unreal. Now, weapon selection, there is going to be one standout, super easy to get weapon, but we are going to talk about 2 other ones. The first one is going to be the Harbinger of Dawn build, and this weapon really is the mainstay of why the elemental skill focus build works. Don't look at that 401 attack. Literally don't look at it. It doesn't matter. It's got 46.9% crit damage, and refinement rank 5. It's a 3-star weapon. You're going to hit this 5 easy. This comes from the gacha. You're pulling on characters. You're pulling on anything. You'll get some of these eventually. When his HP is above 90%, your crit rate is increased by 28%. And it is not hard for him to maintain 90% HP because he's off the field 90% of the time. So you get 28% crit rate and 46% crit damage from this sword. Your E only scales the proc off of your defense percent, leaving you to do a ton of damage with it. So putting all of that stuff together, we talked about with the artifacts, with the Harbinger of Dawn, that is where you're going to get those big, juicy 20 to 24k crits on your elemental skill. It's going to be a big thing there. All the while, he's doing all that damage off the field every 2 seconds in an AoE, mind you. So you might hit 5 dudes with that, doing over 100k damage from some dude, labbing it out with math in the back, and also providing that 20% attack and 30% shield strength buff. This is where the strength of Albedo really comes from. If you're around for Dragon Spine, the Faster Desire could be a good build. Maybe you threw all your Skyward Prides away, you're still working on them, you have this thing laying around. 45% energy recharge, like we said, isn't the craziest thing because this elemental burst only costs 40 energy. So you're going to have that access like all the time, most of the time anyway. But this also does increase your elemental skill damage by 32% and your elemental skill crit rate by 12%. So it's going to affect both when you plant the flower and when the flower explodes. That's going to be a substantial amount of damage. It also has a little bit higher base attack, so you're going to do a little bit more damage with your elemental burst because you have that higher base attack in conjunction with. Now, there has been a new toy for Albedo to play with since he was launched back in the day, and that is the Summit Shaper. The Summit Shaper is a 5-star sword. It was on a banner just recently, and it has a ton of crit rate on it, but it also has a good amount of base attack, and it gives you scaling attack off of your HP percent. But we all know all the Kaching mains already have that weapon on their Kaching, so it looks like you're going to be sticking with the previous weapon. All right, it's just how it's going to be. Y'all are going to be using the Harbinger of Dawn. Don't act. Now, there is one notable constellation I want to talk about here, and that is Constellation 2 for Albedo. In case you want to pull for this later on, it makes the E build super awesome because this is going to make your defense scale into your elemental burst. So what this does is every time your E explodes and does damage, you'll get a stack of something called Tectonic Tide. Now it stacks up to 4 times, and each stack consumed is going to increase Tectonic Tide's damage by 30% of your defense. So 120% at 4 stacks, which takes a maximum of 8 seconds to stack up. which means you can have this up 100% of the time you elemental burst, because your elemental burst has a native 12-second cooldown on it. Easy mode there. And these are the ones that can hit multiple enemies over and over and over. So that's a bunch of explosions, scaling off 120% of your defense in addition to your attack. So the Harbinger of Dawn build really benefits from this, and it leads to a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. So this is definitely one of the constellations to look into, and it's by far his best one in my opinion, because there's a build that abuses his E, and with Constellation 2, that same build will also abuse his elemental burst. Now you're saying, what is the 1.6 thing that's happening? What is he getting buffed by in 1.6? Now 1.6 is going to hit you with an elemental mastery buff for anything not named Vaporize and anything not named Melt. So this means Electrolyze, right? Big Overload, Superconduct damage. All of that good stuff is going to get buffed up. Elemental Mastery is going to have a greater influence in its damage, swirls included, as well as the shields generated by his crystallization effect or just any Geo characters. Albedo's wilding out in Genshin Impact 1.5 and soon to be 1.6. Unless you're watching this video during 1.6, let me know what you guys' favorite use for Albedo is, and please, MiHoYo, fix that platform in combat. I want to be able to jump off over it and just do a bunch of plunging attacks on demand. I don't want to have the big booty enemies standing on my own platform the whole time. If you guys want to see more stuff, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, come back for more 5 to 6 times a week of factual cool information with your boy here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.